I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 117. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Friday, August 11th. And guess what? Another commitment for the Bobcats. This 2024 class is up to 9 players now. Incredible stuff. Saw Westfield corner Carson Williams commit yesterday. I'm sorry. I always do that. He committed on Wednesday. I'm recording this on Thursday. You're hearing this on Friday. But Carson Williams in the bag. Third DB for this class. 2/3 of the class is 3 DBs and 3 receivers. So obviously some positions of need. Technically 5 receivers if you look at Raylan Adams and Christopher Jones. They're coming in as defensive backs, but they're receivers where they're at their high schools right now. Raylan Adams, two-way player. Chris Jones he's more just a receiver they're bringing in as a corner. But anyways, this episode is sponsored by TGC, the Galindo Collective. TheGalindoCollective.com. That's GALINDO Collective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. They offer full-service solutions on general business evaluations, but specialize in residential and rental properties, commercial operations, and construction. If you own property and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com or follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC. You can find them at the Galindo Collective on Twitter and on Facebook. Instagram and Facebook, the Galindo Collective. TGC_LLC. That's where you find them on Twitter. But shout out to my guy Rick Galindo over there, true Tech State sicko, Tech State grad himself. I know he loves him some Bobcats. He's sponsoring us through the whole season and possibly even more. We'll be talking about that soon. But big thank you to Rick Galindo and TGC, thegalindocollective.com. That's GALINDO collective.com. All right, let's get to these Bobcats. So I already kind of talked about the commit, which we will definitely talk about. We'll talk about him first. And then after that, I'm going to do what I love to do. It's one of my favorite things to do on this podcast is I'm going to guess the depth chart. We haven't gotten one yet, but Media Day, Texas State Media Day. Now, mind you, what happened a couple weeks ago, that was Sun Belt Media Day. Texas State Media Day is coming up, and that is going to be just all Bobcats all the time. And probably may get a depth chart then. Who knows? May even get a starting quarterback announcement. Not sure. But until then, to hold you over and to hold myself over, I decided to go through and do a depth chart. And a lot of that had to do with the press conference from Tuesday, which is not on this episode, but it is in a separate audio file on the podcast episode, whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, what have you. There should be presser audio from Tuesday. It'll be up there. I upload it and everything. It's from all 3 of them. It's a whole long file. It's about 50 minutes. Hear from GJ Kinney, Mac Leftwich, Brian Halloway. Good stuff there. I heard from enough of y'all saying that this is how you consume the press conference and how you hear it. So went ahead and put that out there. Audio only version helps us with editing. You know, if we added that extra 50 minutes of video and everything, that adds hours to it. And we're on a schedule here. We're trying to get 2 out a week, and we're trying to get you all that good content. So this one will come out in the middle of the week between episodes. We'll upload that press conference audio. But yeah, that press conference, that made me really want to do this too deep prediction, just how in depth GJ Kinney went in each position, going through basically all of them. Shout out to Brent Freeman. He was asking a lot of questions about each position, and I was like, man, there's some really good info going out right here. Always appreciate when Brant shows up to a press conference. But it was very informative, and it gave me some clarity on certain positions. There's some that I still don't have a ton of clarity on, or I'm like, man, you know, it could be this guy or that guy. I'm not sure, but it's less and less the further we go along that I'm feeling that. A lot of that's more on like the offensive line. if I'm being honest. It seems like we have a good idea at who they're thinking at center and guard, but who's going to be that right tackle? I don't know. We'll get there. We'll litigate that. Before that, though, let's talk a little bit more about Carson Williams. Westfield corner. I know I have his 247 sports page pulled up here. I only had that pulled up prepared because he is now the highest rated guy in this class. Now, granted, last episode we talked about it. Brant Jackson. I was just talking about Brant Freeman. Brad Jackson, the Reagan quarterback. He was the only other player that has a rating on there, and they have the same rating actually, 3 stars, 84 rating. Now I look at it, so he's tied for the highest, I should say. But he did have a lot of really good offers. Of course, he had that Texas State offer, Arkansas State, Boise State, Kansas State, Lamar, Louisiana Tech, Marshall, Northern Iowa, Sam Houston State, Texas Southern, Utah State, Wyoming. It looked like Miami was interested in him, but it says no offer. They just had some interest, some cool interest, whatever that means. Must have visited or something at some point, but not stealing them from UTSA or UNT like some of these other guys we've seen go down, but they are still taking them from some Sun Belt foes in Marshall and Arkansas State, prying them away from some P5. You know, I don't mean to bash on Kansas State, but not the highest end P5 or anything, but still, P5 offer that he's turning down for the Bobcats. PJ Hatter's his teammate. I thought he was going to be at Horses and Ferraris because in June, Carson is someone, a lot of times some of these guys pop up, like Chris Jones. When he popped up, he wasn't on my radar at all, the Westbury corner. He's a Westbury receiver, but he's coming in as a corner. Carson, he's been on my radar for a bit. When I saw he got his offer a few months back, I saw the Westfield connection with PJ Hatter. I was kind of like, oh, there's something there. And then in June, he said he was going to visit July 28th when they did Horses and Ferraris, but he actually didn't end up coming out. So even at the time for Horses and Ferraris, I was like, okay, maybe something changed there, and he's not considering the Bobcats anymore. But it seems that was wrong. He's a Bobcat. Another DB, as I said. Getting those DBs in there. Raylan Adams from Newton is the other one. Chris Jones from Westbury is the other one. This is the first one of those 3 DBs where he doesn't play both sides of the ball, or he doesn't play offense, but they scout him as a defensive guy. He's a defender, and you watch his huddle, man. He's ferocious and fast. That's the description I used on Patreon, patreon.com/winnoworgetbent. Wrote a whole nice article about him. It's actually a free one, so go check it out. You don't need to do the $5 a month. Kind of did that as a nice little preview, so y'all can kind of see what I'm doing on that Patreon page. But go check that one out. The one about Carson Williams is open for everybody. I love his huddle video. He is a very aggressive defensive back. Whether he's covering a guy, going in for a tackle, he's using a lot of energy when facing contact, which is nice. It's what you want to see that in DBs. Sometimes you get some DBs that are they try to do, a lot of times safety position, not corner, where they try to do too much of that contact, and they get in trouble. They'll miss a tackle because they're really trying to lay somebody out. It's not anything like that. It's nothing foolish. It's good aggression. It's handsy aggression. It's being able to almost box out on these 50-50 balls. I'm a big fan of Carson Williams. This is a really good one. I'm a big fan of this whole class. I mean, this is 9 for 9 Texas high school athletes. This is already more commits for 2024 from the state high school from the state of Texas than for all of the last class. They had 7 there. I like the way they're looking, and that goes to what they were kind of saying about where this class for 2023, very transfer heavy, a lot of transfers, 25 FBS transfers in total, 18 of them are P5 or whatever we're going to start calling that, P2. I saw P2 going around this week now. I mean, it's kind of a reality, but what's this going to look like for the Bobcats? I'm sure a lot of you saw Pete Thamel writing about a Sun Belt team in Texas might have some interest in moving conferences. It's like, wonder who that is. But kind of funny. That narrows it down quite a bit. But yeah, and to have such a transfer heavy class last year, and then they said this next one for 2024, it's going to be a different deal. We're going to slow play it. We're going to get what's going to be high school guys, preferably Texas high school guys, and they've lived up to that so far. I mean, 9 for 9, no transfers, and anybody else on their radar in the immediate future are also Texas athletes, Texas high school athletes, not transfers. So I do appreciate that. I can imagine this 2024 class is not going to be 52 as this last one. I could see it being more of a normal size, like 25 or so. But if that is the case at 25, they're already almost halfway. So not too bad. Good looking class. Need more linemen. They just have Priest Ash, the Crowley defensive lineman, and he's an edge. You know, he's not really on the interior line. So maybe some more of these bigger body type guys. I know Tyler Norris is considering the Bobcats. He put out a top 6. I talked about him on the last episode. There's Makai Blue as well. He's from the Marine Military High School. I think that's where at MMHS. He also put out a list of his offers, and Texas State was on there along with like UNT, some other programs. So they have some guys. They have Lakel McCowan as well at Clear Falls, outside linebacker. He posted a picture from Horses and Ferraris with Michael Silvali, who's the Clear Springs linebacker. He committed to Texas State already. So him posting a picture with a commit, obviously he's on their radar. So that's 3 guys that makes me confident they'll be in double digits by the time this season starts for the 2024 class. Definitely can't remember the last time I saw that. It's been a minute. So that's it's good stuff. I like it, man. It's good extra content, good stuff for us to talk about. It's not like we don't have enough to talk about, but I always like more to talk about. You know, I mean, let's talk 2025. Let's get some 2025 commits in the bag. Let's do this. Let's do this depth chart prediction. Let's get there. I'm excited about this one. I'm more confident about. I think the last time I did one may have been post spring or in spring. Maybe I did one more so in the summer. I can't remember specifically the last time I did one, but I am more confident in this one. A lot of them are the same. As I thought then. A lot of them are different. Receivers pretty different. But I'm going to start where I know everybody is dying to know. Everybody's itching. We all want to know. We've been asking about it all summer. Who's going to be the punter? It's Seamus O'Kelly. There you go. I honestly wrote his name down, and as I'm saying it out loud, I didn't even research a backup punter. So I say a 2-deep depth chart, but I just have one punter on my list, and that's our guy, Seamus O'Kelly, the Aussie. Nobody has kicked more punts at Texas State for more yards at Texas State than Seamus O'Kelly. He and that's just a lot of kicks. It's not necessarily saying anything about the style of kicking or what have you. It's a lot. He's had to punt a lot. I mean, he was primarily in the Spavital era where there was a lot of punts. So he's been very useful over the last few years, hopefully less useful this year, useful enough that he makes some waves. Like he's a Ray Guy Award finalist. Shout out to him. That's awesome. I hope it's like 10 really, really good kicks all season. That's what we're rooting for. It's no offense to Seamus, but we don't want to see you on the field a lot this season. But he's back. The senior season, man. And I talked about the last episode about 10. There's 10 guys that joined the Bobcats from high school that are still on this team that aren't new high school guys like PJ Hatter, Jalazen Landry, Bammy Badusi. Not those guys. Not 2023 signees that were here before GJ Kinney. And Seamus O'Kelly's one of them. So shout out to Seamus. Another season in you. Kicker though, kicker's another deal. Keller's gone, transferred out. So we have Mason Shipley and Michael James. I think, we don't know who the kicker is going to be, but I'm pretty confident saying it's going to be Mason Shipley. I mean, he did all of the kickoff duties last year. I mean, Keller was good enough to transfer off somewhere, but he still wasn't doing the kickoff duties. That was put in Shipley's hands, or feet, I guess I should say. And the one field goal he got to attempt, he set a Texas State record with a 54-yarder. He made it. It set the record. I guess that's pretty obvious when I say that. So I got to give it to Mason Shipley. We haven't seen much from Michael James. I think he had like one kickoff last year. So we haven't seen. I've seen Shipley. I saw that 54-yarder And I saw that. I was like, wow, this is one of the first times I can remember Texas State has two really good kickers that you could put out there and do some work. Maybe the last time was like James Sherman and Jason Dan. Oh, does that take anybody back? Shout out to James Sherman, still around the program. And Jason Dan, he made some good kicks himself. Yeah, but I'm pretty confident, especially the way Shipley handled all of the kickoffs last season. I think he could do that again this year. But also, Michael James has got the boot, so he has done kickoffs as well. But the field goals, I'm confident in Mason Shipley. Subject to change, though. Punt return, kickoff return, though that's competition is still waging in fall camp. Names we've heard are Ashton Hawkins and Cole Wilson, although they've been mentioned with the caveat that those guys are going to be used a lot in the offense. So how much kicking do we want? How many kicks do we want them to return? Do we want them to get injured out there? Do we want them to get yards for us on offense? So seems like if those guys are going to be utilized more in the offense and not there, I could see Drew Donley. He's a very fast guy. Cincinnati transfer came and he's been here since the spring. He's been, a lot of people have said he's the fastest guy on the team. It's either him or Malik Hornsby, and they're not putting Hornsby back to return some kicks. So why not give Drew Donley the ball? Let him run it back. I could see Shadid Ahmed as well. I haven't seen him warm up with any of the kick returners or anything. That's just for me watching him operate out there on the field. He's fast. He looks like he could return some kicks. I haven't seen him back there doing it. I could see maybe like Josh Eaton as well too. He's a really good athlete. They've even considered using him on both sides of the ball. So could see that happening. That's a position that's very much in flux though. We'll see where they land on there. But now we're off the specialties. We'll start on the offense. We'll start at quarterback. That's the real position everyone wants to talk about. And everybody knows who I think is going to be the starter. I think TJ Finley is going to take this job. With that being said, Malik Hornsby is my second guy at that quarterback position. And even if he's not the starter, there has to be a way to utilize what Malik can do. I've said this before. Maybe not necessarily a 2-quarterback system, but you can use him as an athlete. Maybe even, I don't know, a package as a wildcat. My buddy Carl Schoening came on, mentioned some maybe a Taysom Hill style package. Speaking of Carl, he was just texting me talking about the tweet volume between Jake Spavital and GJ Kinney, where GJ Kinney since April has tweeted 400 times, and in all 4 years at Texas State, Jake Spavital tweeted 69 times. So apparently he wasn't allowed to scroll. He scrolled too much Elon's Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. He wasn't allowed to scroll past April, or he would have given me the full numbers because he's a sicko himself. He's just a sports sicko in general. But that was great. Shout out to my buddy Carl down there doing some great work with SHN. Got to have him on again sometime soon. But that's a good one though. GJ Kinney definitely tweeting a lot. He's on the Twitter sphere. But yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Let's go back to quarterbacks. TJ Finley, that arm just looks really good. Every time I see him in spring, anytime I see any of these highlights that they post or any of these clips from the local media, from Fox, our guy Joe Salazar is always out there taking some nice clips and they'll throw it out there. And I see his arm and I fall in love with it. And I think it's a strong arm. And every time you watch some of his highlights at his other stops, you can see that strong arm. You can see that zip. It didn't work out as well at those schools. I feel like it is a different situation here. I'm confident that there's less pressure and less things going on, that if he can pick up the intricacies of this offense, then he's going to be pretty successful. It's an offense that you have to think on the fly, so he's going to have to be able to do that. That's something that we've heard GJ Kinney talk about. Malik Hornsby, that's the part of it that he struggled at. But definitely two different types of quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how their decision is made. And I mean, even if you go listen to that press conference audio that I told you on the audio version of the pod, Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to those, you can hear GJ Kinney talk about the toughest position to evaluate. Another question from Brant. He asked, what's the toughest position you've recognized is the toughest position to evaluate this 2 weeks into fall camp? And he says quarterbacks. I mean, when you look at you bring in two SEC guys, you can imagine it's a tough deal to have to decide between the two of them. So running backs, we've heard G.J. Kinney say they're going to use 5 to 7 if they can. Lincoln Perry and Josh Berry being out for the season hurts that a little bit. They have about 5 that they'll really utilize. I think that so for this one I have 4 listed. I have 2 first unit guys and 2 second unit guys because I think they're going to have a real heavy rotation at that running back position. But 1A, Calvin Hill. No surprise there with Lincoln Perry going down. 1B, Jamil Jeter had a terrific spring. He's gotten a lot of praise. He looks like he fits really well in this offense. It fits his skill set more than the previous one. But my 2A, Ishmael Mahdi, new guy, Houston Christian, really got some speed to him. Really can get that ball and hit a home run. Denario Davenport is my 2B though. He's out there wearing number 8. He looks more like that prototypical running back. He's almost got the size of Jeter. But he's real shifty out there. Honestly, all the 4 I just named could all be starters. They could all be starters. They could all be the 4th one used. I think that Calvin Hill is the best of the bunch, but I think that all of they are comparable as far as quality of running back. I mean, I don't have many. Neither one is like I don't think there's a 2,000-yard rusher in the bunch or a 15-yard rusher like Incarnate Word had last year in the bunch. There's not really like that bell cow, but all of them are going to be serviceable and all of them will be utilized. I could see them all combining for 2,000 yards, and they're going to be utilized pretty often in a heavy rotation, it seems. Tight end, Connor Fox. No surprise there because G.J. Kinney said that one. And he even said the backup, Titus Lyons. Shout out to Titus Lyons, junior college guy, first year last year. Started to come on like halfway through the year. Good for him to get in there. And Simon Gonzalez coming in from SMU. He's able to beat out like that transfer and still be number 2 at that tight end spot. And Mac Leftwich in that press conference audio, I keep referencing that. It talks about the tight ends and how they only had 9 catches for their tight end last year, but that's probably going to be different this year because he has tight ends who he thinks can pass catchers, more so pass catchers than the one that he had said was more like a prototype fullback that he had at tight end last year at Incarnate Word. Different deal here with Connor Fox. And I believe it. You look at Connor Fox and you're like, that's a tight end. I've talked about it here. It's the first time since like Keenan Brown. Or like Gabe Schrade. Remember that name? I love naming names. It's a good time. Shout out to Gabe Schrade. Man, that was one of the best guys to interview this program has ever had. He might be on the top of that list. He was like a little mini Tim Tebow, just inspiring everybody. Let's go to receivers though. Receivers this is different than what I thought it would be in the spring and everything, mainly because some new guys were added. But it's the same deal, kind of like how running backs, where I have a 1A and a 1B. We're going to do that because how they set up these receivers, they have 2 out wide, 2 flankers, and 2 slots on the inside. So 4 receivers. That seems to be the staple every time. It's 4 receivers. Maybe it's a running back. Maybe there's a tight end in there. But that's the 4 receivers seem to be a staple. So out wide, your flankers. I have Joey Hobart, who I've talked a lot about, Utah Tech. I've heard a lot of good things from the coaches about him as well. And then I have Julian Ortega-Jones. So those are your 2. Those are the 2 that I have with the first unit. 2 flankers I have with the first unit. Behind them, I have Bo Corrales and Drew Donley. Now, Bo Corrales, I almost had as a starter over Ortega-Jones. But he started out fall camp with a hamstring injury, so he hasn't been going. I think he's just starting to pick up this week. So coming in already late, behind in the system, and then to miss a few practices. Ortega-Jones, we saw him in the spring. He seems to thrive in this offense. We heard him get praise from the coaches saying he's like one of the most consistent guys out there. So I could see Ortega-Jones having the slide edge over Bo Corrales there, but he'll be in the rotation as well. And Drew Donley got a lot of praise for he switched from the left side the two flanker positions, as I was saying. He was the left flanker in the spring, and I guess at the beginning of fall camp. They switched him to the right side, and he's thriving a lot more at that. Like, it seemed like he played the left side at Cincinnati, but he played the right side in high school, so he's more used to that position, more of a natural position, if you will. And there were some of those highlights where Malik Hornsby is connecting with Drew Donnelly in stride for a long touchdown, and maybe that switch to the right side played into that. Seems like it did, because they've been saying he's succeeding a lot more since moving to the right side. But there you go. Receivers there. Slot receivers. Ashton Hawkins. Honestly, no doubt about that. Ashton Hawkins, he's going to be in there at that slot receiver. The other slot position, Cole Wilson, Incarnate Word transfer. Talked a lot about him. Speedster was a true freshman last year, so didn't really break through that rotation at Incarnate Word. A lot of good receivers, but anticipate he will this year. Grade ups, best vertical on the team, so don't worry about his 5'8" stature. Behind them, I have Shadid Ahmed. I think he's actually going to be in the rotation quite a bit. I mentioned him on kickoff return and everything. He's got some speed to him. And Chris Don Jr. is who I have here. Now, I almost went Charles Brown. Charles Brown, seen him peel the top off defense. Saw him do it some last year, so I could see him getting in the rotation as well. I'm going Chris Don Jr. here, true freshman out of Horn High School. He was mentioned by the coaching staff, so I'm gonna put him in there. I wasn't sure, true freshman, are they actually going to get in there and play a lot? With all these transfers and everything, seems like he is at least a little bit. He's going to be given a shot. Well, let's go to this offensive line. Not as confident in the offensive line as I am some of these other positions, but we're still going to go through it. I'm pretty confident in left tackle. That's Nash Jones. We know about Nash Jones, Incarnate Word transfer, big, strong guy. Turned down P5 to follow G.J. Kinney and Jordan Shoemaker. There's your left tackle. Great name, too, Nash Jones. Man, sounds like a TNT show detective or something. Behind him, I'm going to put Alex Harkey, Colorado transfer, local guy from right up the street in Buda. I wasn't sure if he was going to be right or left tackle. I know he's a tackle, but then we heard GJ at Sunbelt Media Day say Alex Harkey was telling Nash Jones, "I'm coming for your position." So I just try to read tea leaves here. Maybe that puts him at that second string left tackle spot. Left guard. The interior of the line, I'm real suspect on. Honestly, all five positions outside, I guess 4 of the 5, not left tackle, I'm pretty iffy on. But my left guard that I have here on my list is Chase Todd, Houston transfer. Now, we've heard from the coaching staff that he's been working in at center, working in at guard, going back and forth. He was a guard at Houston, so I think he's still going to be a guard here because it seems like they're going another direction for center, but we'll get there. And for behind him, I have one of the Abibo brothers. I'm not sure which one. I don't know which one is Emeka or Hameto is better, but I have one of the Abibo brothers at left guard behind Chase Todd. And maybe I need to give the Abibo brothers more credit. I hear they're 2 of the strongest guys on the team. Heard that from Nash Jones. He's right up there with Bray Walker and Nash and these guys. So, but I can imagine they're going to work their way into the rotation. The Abibo brothers also Incarnate Word transfers, if you don't remember. At center, I have Caleb Johnson, someone I didn't expect to be at center, but seems like he is at center from what we've heard in those press conferences this week. Caleb Johnson, they call him the Big Show. We talked about him on the last episode. 6'6" center, 6'6", 340 at center. I mean, big guy. It's a good block radius for him at center. Hopefully he snaps it well. Seems like he does. It wasn't a center before. It was all second team All-American, left guard. I think it was left at Incarnate Word last year. So behind him, I have Danny Valenzuela, who's the Arizona State transfer. He is a true center, but they said they've been moving him at guard as well. So we could see Danny move around the line. We've talked about, I feel like the last couple of years, musical chairs with the offensive line. This is more so musical chairs than I've ever seen. It's like 3 different games of musical chairs going on at once. It's like this guy's guard, center there, tackle here. Anybody could play anywhere. I mean, they had Nash Jones snapping the ball, the left tackle. So, I mean, who knows? Right guard, I am actually a little confident in right guard. Dorian Strawn, another Incarnate Word transfer. He's gotten a lot of praise. That seems to be his position there. And I'm even confident in his backup, Marcus Alexander, the Oklahoma transfer. He's been on the pod before, said he might work at center, wasn't named as the centers when Coach was talking about the guys working at that position, so maybe they've moved on from that. So I would put him back at guard. He's a right guard at Oklahoma, so I could see him at that position for the Bobcats. At right tackle, right now I have Bray Walker as my starter from Oklahoma, and behind him I have Jaden Smith. Jaden Smith's been here a while. I have no idea at right tackle. Not confident in that. Bray Walker's just massive human being. 6'7", 355 pounds, coming in from P5 Oklahoma. So gotta imagine that carries some weight. No pun intended. Not kidding. I imagine he carries some weight. Carries his own weight, man. It's a big guy. Let's switch to the defense. We're going to start at safeties. My two safeties there, Torrey Spears and Caleb Culp. That's who I think will man those safety positions. You know, with Darius Jackson hurt, the Missouri transfer, they're kind of hurting at safety at the back end of the defense. They don't have a ton of depth because behind them I have Javin Ware, brand new on the scene as well, and Ronnie Hamrick, who's been here for a little while. But it seems they need some depth. May need to be working some other guys at that safety position that are at these corner positions. If you remember, the star position is that nickel. That's what they call nickel in this defense. And that was one position I had no idea where they going, who they thinking there. Now we have a really good idea thanks to the coaches at the press conference. Caleb Coleman, West Virginia transfer. He's in there at that star position, and he's battling with A.J. Edwards, who did a lot of good things last year, made a lot of waves in spring football as well. So I imagine both those guys will be heavily in that rotation there. Also said Michael Boudin and DeMarquise Hayes are working at star as well, but I imagine it's a two-man competition between those two. Corner, pretty easy. Josh Eaton, Caleb Ford DeMint, those are going to be the two corners. I'm even pretty confident in the guys that are behind them with Sean Holton, the Incarnate Word transfer, and Chris Mills, Missouri transfer, played last year. Remember, he had that real scary injury but came back a week later. He was mentioned by the coaching staff as doing some really good things in camp. Inside linebackers, pretty easy as well. Brian Holloway, Dan Foster Jr., those are going to be your guys. Brian Holloway switched to number 0, SMU transfer last year. He was number 37, switched to 0. I asked him in the press conference, I was like, you glad to get off that ugly number? And then as I say it, I remember Paul Goldschmidt, number 37. So not that ugly. That carries some weight here. Dan Foster, the Marshall transfer. They seem to have a lot of chemistry. They paired them together in the spring, and they haven't split that up since. Behind them, though, I'd say C.J. Williams and Derek Mourning. Mourning is a brand new guy. Williams was in his first year last year out of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. There's also Dontavius Burrows. I could see him getting in that inside linebacker mix behind them. Defensive end is, I think, easy. I think it's easy to guess. It seems like it, but I'm going to say Jordan Revels and Ben Bell are going to be those defensive ends. 2 returners. Nice to see that. But right there with them is Sam Latham, the Incarnate Word transfer, big guy. Really knows this defense. Apparently has helped guys get to know some of the schemes and intricacies that go into this new 4-2-5 look. But I have on this list, I have 2 different guys. I have Devin Wright, the Boise State transfer, just because we saw him with the first units in the spring. Lots changed since then. They brought in a lot of defensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen total in that 52-man class. So I have Devin Wright or Victor Obi, the new guy from Baylor. Big, tall guy, has 1 year left. They brought him in kind of late, so maybe he didn't know the system as well to be a starter, but seems to have that raw talent that could throw him out there and make some stuff happen. Defensive tackle, we have Jason Gold Jr. and Myron Warren. 2 guys that, Gold surprised me, and it even surprised the coach. He even called him a pleasant surprise this fall camp. They have him wearing number 10. So that if he's a defensive tackle and they're letting him have a number that high up, they like him pretty good. But he's the Northwestern transfer. He's been making some waves out there. And Myron Warren is the Texas transfer. Saw him get out there a little bit last year. It seems like this coaching staff is really going to utilize him. Starting to come along pretty good. Yeah, those interior linemen, all across all 4 positions on the defensive line, there's a lot of depth and rotation for it. But I really like where these interior linemen are going and how many of them they have. It's kind of the good thing when you switch from a 3 to a 4-man front from a 3-man front is now you don't have to worry about that nose tackle. because it's hard to find a nose tackle, a guy who's really big but not too tall, but still really big and really wide and really quick and really strong. And that it's more of a specific type of big. Obviously it's hard to find anybody who's big, but that's a very specific type of big that's hard to find. It's almost a sumo wrestler. It's really it's got to be someone who can eat space and do a lot of the dirty work. Now with a 4-man front, you get some guys. You want big bodies for sure, but it's all right if they're a little sleek enough to slip through the B gap or the A gap or something like that, where they can shade the guard and the center instead of lining up right on the center or maybe on their shoulder, or usually it's head on for these nose tackles. It helps with stunting more as well. Where if you're, say you want to take Ben Bell, line him up on the outside and have him crash the B gap or the A gap or something, and you get Jason Gold to run around the end. I mean, it's more conducive for stunts and everything. And I love stunts. I think that adds a lot of pressure. Stunts that's a way where you don't have to use a lot of blitzing. These guys don't seem to blitz a ton. That was an interesting thing about the star position. When talking to GJ Kinney, he was talking about star. Star will blitz a lot. That's a guy. It's in coverage, that nickel position. But because they also play a lot of man coverage. So they were talking about it needs to be a guy who can cover man coverage and blitz. So, but they don't blitz a lot. That star will blitz, but they don't blitz a lot. So with this defensive line, you want to have a plethora of them, and you want to be able to do all different kinds of things. Where it's not that a nose tackle pigeonholes you, but it kind of does, in my opinion. It kind of does. It's just. It's a big guy in the middle of the line. Like, yeah, is it going to be really hard for the other team to run the ball straight down your face? Yeah, for sure. But it's not how the game really is as much anymore. I'd rather the defensive line go get the quarterback than have a for sure run stopper. It's nice to stop the run, but I'd rather put that quarterback on his butt. I like that better. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, Jason Gold, Myron Warren as my two starters at defensive tackle. Behind them, Terry Webb, my guy Terry Webb. I loved his film all off season. I think he's going to get in there in the rotation, but so is Tavion Coleman. It's Utah State transfer. He's been making some waves. Christian Rory, the Duke transfer. I haven't seen a lot of Christian Rory. I interviewed him for a social media video that we put out on Win Now or Get Bent, at Win Now or Get Bent on Twitter. I interviewed him when he was visiting Texas State, and he's huge. He's huge. If you'd probably have to scroll the Twitter, maybe we should throw those on YouTube. But you'd probably have to scroll our Twitter page to go find it and see me stand next to him, and you'd think I was a little shrimp standing next to that guy. He's a massive human being. So big guys all around. That's the cool part. Is even when they're talking about the offensive line, the average is like 6'5", 300 and some odd pounds, like. That's the average for this offensive line. So good stuff. But yeah, there you go. 2 deep prediction. We'll see how wrong it is. Probably wrong in some areas. I'm not too confident at like right tackle and some of these other areas, but other ones I know I nailed for sure. But that'll do it for this one. As I said before, press conference audio. It's on the audio version of the pod. Apple, Spotify. Go check that out. You'll be able to access that. It's a good, nice long 50 minutes. So if you can pair it and get a nice preview of everything. Thanks again to TGC, thegalindocollective.com, for sponsoring us all throughout the season. Make sure you check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/winnoworgetbent. I've been cranking out a bunch of articles. Just said there's a free one on there. So if you want to go get a preview before you want to decide if it's worth $5 a month, go check that out. Check out WNOGB.com. Lots of merch. You can see me showing off mine if you're on the YouTube channel. Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Subscribe there as well. Follow us on social medias. All that good stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. That's the free way to support us right there. All you got to subscribe, you like, you retweet, you comment, you tell your friends. Yeah, you can, like I was saying before, go to a library, just start making fake accounts. You just use different emails. Help us out, keep those running in the loop. I don't know. Can I get in trouble for saying stuff like this? I don't actually mean all the last stuff I say. Just you yourself with your account. Go like it. Go subscribe. Go do all that good stuff. And if you want to advertise like TGC, hit me up, wnogbkeff@gmail.com. It's wnogbkeff@gmail.com. One big thank you to my guy, the wizard of Win Now or Get Bent, Zachary Webb, working hard, doing that hard stuff for all of us, making me look good. That's the real hard part of this podcast, and he does it really well. So thanks to Zachary Webb, and thank you to all you sickos out there listening, supporting, always tuning in. Can't wait for this season. Should be fun. Is GJ Kinney going to light up the scoreboard like he promised? Oh, we'll find out. All right, sickos. Till next time. Win now or get bent.